Hello, folks. Welcome to this episode of Al's Joint. I'll be joined by my co-host Dennis Painter as we tackle the hot topics coming out of Washington, D.C., led by this ridiculous administration and their attempt to embarrass our country. So as we head into this holiday season, it only feels right that we pay homage to Boyz II Men and Let It Snow. So let's take the gloves off and let's get at it. Well, Brother Painter, we're back again for another week. And believe me when I tell you, this administration will keep the news cycle just constantly turning. From one day to the next, it's just madness and more madness.
It's gone beyond madness. It's insanity. I think Trump and some of his administration should be put in an insane asylum. I really do. And I don't say that lightly either.
But I wouldn't wish that on the folks who are already in the insane asylum. Let them at least have a chance to get better. They can only get worse if you put those fools in there next to them.
It's horrible as well, some of the stuff that's going on, and innocent people are dying, and that should never be.
So let's jump right into the boat scandal that Petey Hegseth has been going around bragging of all the boats that he blew up and the people that he killed. And then if they found out that there were survivors after one of the explosions who were clinging to the boat for dear life, and he gave the order to kill them all. I hate to be graphic, but they reported that they blew their bodies apart. They were clearly seen, body parts seen floating in the ocean. And that's raised a lot of eyebrows. A lot of people stepped up. Even some Republican politicians are stepping up saying if that happened, somebody has to pay for that. Because if he gave the order, then that was a war crime. And if they think that those folks were actually enemy combatants, but if they weren't, then it was murder.
How can somebody be an enemy combatant who has not attacked the United States? Venezuela by boat is 2,200 miles from the United States of America. Those boats weren't equipped to travel 2,200 miles with drugs on board. All the evidence has been sent to the bottom of the ocean. The killing of those two surviving sailors or fishermen, in my opinion, was to eliminate any evidence that they weren't carrying drugs, that in fact they were fishermen and they were innocent. There's been 21 boat bombings, 83 people killed. Not all of them have been in Venezuela, and there's a lawsuit that's been filed by some people that they lost loved ones that are from Colombia. But at no point has anyone come forward, Al, and said, here is the evidence that proves that these people are a direct threat to the United States of America. No one has come forward and said that they intended to attack the United States of America. And people need to look at this seriously. We're out there killing innocent people, and we're using an excuse that's not plausible. When 75% of the drugs is coming across the Mexican border, we're not doing anything. When we have drug cartels right in the United States of America, and we redirecting our attention to another country, that doesn't make any sense. And what it looks like to me now is because they've gotten caught, it's deny and deflect along with lie. Hegseth gave another admiral, Alvin Holsey, the order to carry out these bombings. And he said he wouldn't do it because of the possibility that civilians would be killed. And they really had a blowout. But he refused to do it. Now, he ended up sending in his resignation letter just a few minutes after that blow up, but he just wouldn't do it. Now, he's agreed to testify before Congress, so we'll see how that goes. But really,
they blamed Admiral Bradley is the one they're going to bring this week in front of Congress to testify. I wouldn't miss that interview for the world because he's going to shed some light on what we all know, that Trump lies, Hegseth is a big liar, and they're killing people. One thing I want to point out, though, is that it's been said and it's been investigated that the cartel is telling these fishermen, you either take these drugs and make this run, and we'll give you this money, or we're going to kill you or your family, or both. And those folks know if they turn it down, they're going to die. But at least if they take the shot of making a run, because they're saying even with those bombings, they're only getting one out of every 20 boats, they're saying. The other ones are getting through. And clearly, Trump is trying to conduct a regime change in that country. And he's using this as a way to do it. He's telling the president that I'll let you leave. Go to Russia, do whatever. We'll install whoever we want in the position of power there, and then the United States will run that country from afar.
Well, the United States, along that line, is trying to run the world, and it's overstepping our abilities and it's overstepping our authority. I just don't see those boats making a trip 2,200 miles in open water. So even if they did have drugs on them, and even if they were forced to by the cartel, they're not coming straight into the United States. And let's be real, okay? Once the boat bombings started, if they did have drugs on it, not everyone would have known about it, possibly. Some might have, but not everyone. But the cartel is not stupid. They're going to say, oh, yeah, well, okay, let's send out a dummy boat. And they're going to bring the drugs in some other way if that was their intent. Now, the Virgin Islands are a lot closer than the United States of America. Puerto Rico is a lot closer than the United States of America. Of course, Puerto Rico is, a territory, but they were within 500 miles of Venezuela. But, bombing a few boats is not going to stop it. And quite frankly, we have a drug problem in the United States. The drugs are getting in and they're being distributed within our cities and throughout the country. And that's where we should be concentrating on. To me, it's all for Trump's agenda.
How ironic is it that the Democratic congressional and Senate folks who stepped up and said that, look, it's illegal to ask a member of the armed services to commit an unlawful act. And they were threatened with court martial, and they were said that they should be hung. And then they bring up this 2016 clip with little P.D. Hestet specifically saying that the troops, not the generals, that the troops cannot and should not follow an unlawful order. I want to see what Trump's going to say about that. Is he going to say that he's guilty of treason, that he should be hung? It was clear, and he said it in front of a large audience. So I don't know why people don't understand that when you say something and it's recorded and it's out there, people are out there looking for that. So if you want to be a hypocrite, you should at least know what you've said in the past.
I think they're going to have a scapegoat. We'll see how the testimony goes tomorrow, but I believe they're looking at a scapegoat to get it that incident as far away from Trump as he possibly can get. And it's up, to us and to the people of America and to our Senate and our congressmen to keep pushing for the real truth. That's how I see it. But the reality is the order really came from the top, from Trump to Hesketh to the admirals. And from there down, whoever bombed. Now, we said in the last session, all of those people are guilty of breaking the law and should be prosecuted or could be prosecuted. And we warned people specifically that you don't want to see your son or your daughter or your husband or your wife in prison because they followed an unlawful order. And that's how I see it. It's the line of illegal conduct started with Trump all the way down to whoever pushed the button for the bomb.
But the hypocrisy doesn't stop with Hegseth, right? It starts and like you said, the buck stops with Trump. And the fact that he would pardoned one of the biggest drug pens in the history of this world, not the history of this country or that country, in the history of this world. The president of Honduras, Juan Hernandez, they said that not only did he bring over 400 tons of cocaine into this country, that he bragged about shoving that white powder up the nose of the white gringos in America. And if you do the math on what people make from that amount of money when they use it to make crack cocaine, it's estimated that that number would put the profits of that cocaine near $1 trillion. So he trafficked possibly because all of it wouldn't have been used for crack. But had it been all used for crack, he would have been responsible for putting $1 trillion worth of crack into this country. And how many thousands of people, tens of thousands of people, hell, 100,000 folks, hundreds of thousands of folks who were addicted to crack, committed crime while they were addicted to crack, other folks who were the victim of these folks who were using crack, and you pardon him at the same time you're saying the reason why you've blown up these innocent fishermen is because they're dumping drugs, which is, like you said, is a lie because most of the drugs is coming through Mexico. And that's only the drugs. The number one pharmaceutical drug that's killing folks, fentanyl, is coming in from China. 90% of the fentanyl is coming in from China. How many folks are being killed over that? You don't see them blowing up any Chinese vessels.
I think this whole situation, they're not strong people, they're weak people. And that's why they're always making excuses up and blaming someone else. I'm sure I'm not the only one, but I'm tired of hearing how it's always somebody else's fault. It's Biden's fault, it's Obama's fault, it's the Democrats' fault, it's the socialists' fault, it's the independents' fault. Well, guess what? When somebody's constantly pointing their finger at someone else, look at the other end of the arm. That's the problem. And I'm pretty tired of all of that. The guilty party is in office. And what I don't understand, what I grapple with is Trump is embarrassing his own party. He's a complete embarrassment with this whole thing, just with the drugs, okay? And pardoning drug kingpins. He's embarrassing his own party. He's talking out both sides of his face. Now, the hardcore MAGA folks don't care. But like I've said before, I know, and some of them are in my family, I know that all Republicans are not bad people. Not all Republicans aren't without, some level of morals. So it has to be an embarrassment to them, and they have to be thinking, what in the world is going on? Now, we've seen the support of Trump fallen, but there needs to be, a real revolution on getting him out of office.
Well, the midterms are less than a year away. Time goes quick. I know a year is an eternity in politics. Hell, in this administration, 48 hours is an eternity, right? One day you're out there screaming and hollering with a gavel talking about you blew up these boats and you kill everybody on board, and you're telling your generals that we're going to be hunt down and kill our enemies. And the next day you're running around hiding like a little bitch, talking about, I didn't say it, blaming it on the general, blaming it on somebody else. That I've never seen a smoother way of blaming somebody. He gave the order, but we support the order he gave 100%.
Yeah.
When it's going to be proven that he said he gave the order.
Yeah, and then the question is then, let's just say it gets proven that Trump gave the order or Hicks gave the order. What's Congress or the Senate going to do? All right. Now it's a war crime. We know it's a war crime. It's a war crime. What are they going to do? And it doesn't matter what the general says. He was taking orders. All right. And there's no evidence that there were drugs on any of those boats that's been presented. And when asked, Hicks made comments there was drugs, But when asked about proof, he didn't have proof. He didn't provide any proof. And so you're right, they're smooth in some ways, but remember, they had an emergency meeting over this, and they pulled everybody in that they needed to figure out what is going to be their story. And it ended up, we've got to get this as far away from Hegseth and Trump as we can. And the military was the place to go. We can't blame the Democrats for giving the order. I mean, no, we don't direct the military, so they
Right.
that's what they came up with.
To me, though, and I just want to continue on this issue of all these folks who are put in a position that are DEI hires. It starts at the top. Trump was never qualified to be president, and he's proven it by all the ridiculous, stupid things he's done, not only in his first term and his second term. And you can say, oh, well, he got voted back in. Is that something we should brag about, or should we mourn the fact that some of the electric overlooked the fact that he was a DEI hire in the first term? Hegseth clearly is not, probably one of the most unqualified directors of, well, now they want to call it the Department of War, right? One of the most unqualified folks to fill that role. Patel, another podcaster, the director of FBI, one of the most unqualified folks that to hold that position ever. It's laughable. The Secretary of Education, McMahon, I don't know if it was current husband or ex-husband, uh, was a studio wrestling promoter. These are the, and you wonder why we're in this situation with all these DEI hires, one on top of the other. Just because you can nod your head constantly doesn't make you qualified for that position.
Well, we've seen anyone that challenges Trump, he goes after. I mean, Senator Kelly's, even though he didn't go after Trump, what he was doing is he was saying, quoting the Constitution, follow the law and don't take unlawful orders. And he goes after anyone that opposes Trump, he goes after. I mean, he's consistent about that.
We can't leave Bondi out. She's a DEI hire as well. She wasn't ready for
Oh
that
my
position.
God. Oh,
Ridiculous.
oh, yeah. I tell you what, on her feet, she's as quick a liar as Trump is.
Yes,
I
she
can tell you
is.
that.
And the other, there's another DEI hire I want folks to, the First Lady, Melania. She's not qualified to be the First Lady.
You
Right?
know what I
I don't
saw?
care what anybody tells me. She's one of the, first of all, she was one of the only First Ladies I've ever seen nude.
Well, I haven't seen her nude, so I don't.
Yeah, if you didn't look at those pictures that were circulating on the internet, they're harder to find now. They started trying to scrub her pictures off the internet, right? But she wasn't qualified. There's nobody qualified up there. They
Yeah.
just throw anybody in these positions, run this country into the ground, and then people wonder why we're suffering like we're suffering.
I mean, there's been a couple things on Fox News, and even Fox News is kind of like, okay, what's going on here? I mean, they put the numbers out. The unemployment rate is much worse than it was, 6 weeks ago. It's 4.44%, and Fox even said, look, the numbers that's being put out by the administration doesn't make any sense. But the other piece that Fox put out right after that was taken up for Melania, how wonderful she was, and how she had decorated for Christmas and all that. Well, she was caught on tape saying she hated effing Christmas, she hated effing decorating, and she was only doing it because she had to.
Where I am, I'm working like a my ass off. I know. Christmas stuff that, who gives a about Christmas stuff and decoration, but I need to do it, right?
Now, so
And then she said, "Let me take my clothes off and get back on YouTube."
she's getting to the age she's going to find a way to make money, I reckon. So
Yeah, that would be true. So, as we do every week, we want to make sure we don't take people's eyes off of the Epstein scandal and those children who are now grown and are fighting back. Make sure that folks understand those women are still hurting, and it's not fair if we allow the Trump administration to divert our attention away from those women and those victims. Like I said in our last episode, there are people out there that are still committing heinous crimes. That ring has not been broken up. This isn't just old news. This is continuing. And we need to figure out who those folks are and start not only punishing the folks that we know about, but the folks who are still engaged in that and are continuing to do such, these young children.
Well, for those that believe that Trump is trying to protect America by killing sailors, they need to believe that he's protecting the pedophiles and putting our children in danger by not pursuing this in a more stringent manner. And we've talked about the Department of Justice now has the files. They have 20 or more names. Why hasn't there been charges filed? And my concern is that people said all the files are now out there. They're going to kind of relax. We should not relax. Now we should be continue to push the Trump administration, continue to push the Senate and Congress and the Department of Justice to get those names and get some arrests out there. Now, Trump is saying I'm not in it, but Bill Clinton is. Well, I don't really care. Whoever's in there, they're in there. Let's have them arrested. And the Department of Justice knows who's in there. And it may mean a shakedown of our country. It may mean a shakedown of our political system. But we need that if we have these type of people covering for each other and are doing those type of things.
And I want folks and when I say folks, I mean the talking heads and the head of some of these networks, right, who are on some of these networks on these shows, quit dodging the fact that the evidence points to Donald Trump being a pedophile and a rapist. We already know he's a felon. You'll mention the felonies. They're still afraid. He gets to insult women repeatedly, calling women piggies, saying you're stupid. Somebody needs to say, I may be that, but I'm not a pedophile. I'm not a rapist. You are, sir. So if that's a stupid question, then that's on you. And we keep dismissing it and what he does like he's not a pedophile. There's enough evidence that would have had him brought in and arrested anywhere for being a pedophile. He's already been charged with being a rapist and found guilty of sexual misconduct. Right. I just want folks to understand that he doesn't get a pass because he wears the title of president. If you think you can still sit there and insult women, that's all he insults because he's afraid. He's never been man enough to assault a man, at least not to his face. He does these little nicknames he gives folks from afar. For some reason, he feels he can just talk down on women at any time. And somebody should tell him that there's enough evidence to convict you for being, or at least bring you in front of a jury for being a pedophile. What do you have to say about that?
He's consistently shown that he has no respect really for anyone, even for the Republican Congress and the Republican Senate. They're like puppets. And so we got to keep pushing. But there is enough evidence, and he keeps opening his mouth and proving himself every week that he has no respect for women. And how the Republican females continue to support him and that type of person is beyond me. They should be standing up and saying, hey, we need someone different in there. Now, it doesn't mean they have to abandon the party. I'm not advocating they abandon the party because I think that would, people get lost doing that. We're saying, look, if you're going to vote Republican, have someone in there that's respectable and decent to the people and not be calling people names in public, not be making up names. I mean, unfortunately, there's a sector in this country that, I mean, they got off on that. It was, these little nicknames that were meant to make fun of others. And that's not what I call an educated group of people.
Yeah, we're probably the laughing stock of the world now. We are the laughing stock of the world. Everybody knows that we have a pedophile as president. He's committing war crimes, and he's pardoning some of the biggest drug kingpins in the history of the world. And you wonder why President Xi and President Putin laugh at him. You wonder why President Putin is saying that the only way we end this war is on my terms. And that goes back to really, what does he have on Trump?
And I thought about this, and I got to be careful about what I say and how I say it. But um, to me, it's clear. One is that Trump did not negotiate that 28-point deal. It was handed to him, and he was told, "This is what you're going to present and get passed." It also told me, and this, Trump is not a negotiator. If he negotiated that, he is not a negotiator, because there was nothing in there for the other party that would bring safety to Ukraine. So he's not a negotiator. But what I want to be careful about is, I'd say he's in his back pocket, but I want to say he's in his pants. But that's it.
Hey, if the story keeps coming out, we end up to get a chance to interview Bubba. Might have more things to tell than we care to know. I just think that Putin understands that he has Trump right where he wants him. There's no other excuse for it. There's no other excuse how he's treating Putin, who's been our enemy, that you're treating him like your best buddies, or that he has some dirt on you, some serious dirt that would allow him to think that he can take over another country, enter that country, and then dictate the terms of the settlement.
And you take a look at it, Putin thinks he's weak. North Korea thinks he's weak. China thinks he's weak. That spells trouble for us. And what's Trump doing? He wants to go down to Venezuela, to a small country, and start a war and have our citizens killed to get the attention off of him on this Maxwell and Epstein thing. And I've been reading on going back to the Epstein files, and I'd be saying I'd be shocked if he didn't pardon Maxwell. But I think she's taking another approach off of what Trump is saying. And the approach is, it's called a communicative application she's putting together. And what she's saying is that I didn't do it because Trump is saying that the Epstein thing is just a Democratic hoax. It never really happened. So if it was a hoax that never really happened, then she should not have been convicted. I think that's a different avenue that she's taken now. She lost her appeals. The Supreme Court wouldn't even hear it. So I think that's her next approach. I hope she doesn't get out. But they're talking, she's got dogs and everything else. That's not prison. They need to send her back to prison.
Well, I hope that I wake up in the morning sometime wishing that Trump was a Democratic hoax and he didn't exist and he would just disappear. But unfortunately, he's
Democratic hoax or Republican hoax?
No, I wish he was a Democratic hoax. We just made him up and we woke up one day and say,
okay.
"Woo, that was a nightmare," but it never existed. But no, when you turn on the TV, he's real. And everything that he's done to this country and to those girls is real. We've come to the end of another podcast. I want to thank you for your input. I'll see you next week. So, folks, we've come to the end of another episode. I want to thank everybody for joining and watching. Don't forget to hit the share, like, and subscribe button. And also leave your comments below. I'm really interested in what you're thinking, unless you're a far right-wing MAGA nut. And if you are, you already know. I don't give a damn what you're thinking. So until next week, when we continue to take this fight to those far right-wing lunatics, peace.
Please be a part of protecting our Constitution. Take a stand and sign the petition now through the link in our description.